An absolute bombshell has just obliterated the Democrats' election schemes just in time for the November midterms. A federal appeals court just made a ruling that has blue state officials scrambling behind closed doors, and legal experts are calling it one of the most consequential election decisions in years. For months, certain states have been stonewalling, refusing, and fighting tooth and nail to keep a very specific secret buried. And today, that secret just got dragged out into the open. Gang, what you're about to hear changes everything about how November is going to play out, and the Democrats never saw it coming. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, enjoying yet another glorious day in the Trumpian golden age that you made possible back in November 2024. So if you want a front row seat on how you continue to change the world in ways you never even imagined, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Let's go back to the month of March, shall we? President Trump signed a landmark executive order aimed at cleaning up how mail-in ballots get administered through the U.S. Postal Service. It was actually brilliant. It was a textbook case of how to use the power of the federal government to enforce America First policies. Trump's executive order required the Postal Service itself to actually confirm the eligibility of a mail-in ballot before it even goes out the door. So, in other words, we're no longer at the mercy of corrupt blue state governors or legislators. Now the Postmaster General, a federal official, would be in charge of regulating who is actually eligible to get a mail-in ballot. And here's where the EO gets so freaking awesome. Any state that refused to comply with the Postmaster General's requirements to verify the eligibility of a mail-in ballot recipient would not get mail-in ballots at all. And Postmaster General Louis DeJoy quickly moved to implement that new order, refusing to deliver mail-in ballots to any state that refused to say who's actually eligible to receive them in federal elections. And predictably, the left lost their minds. They went the NAACP, which is just a far-left activist organization disguised as a civil rights group, they filed suit against the U.S. Postal Service and DeJoy. And true to form, their court shopping worked originally. A district judge in Boston, of course, an Obama appointee, of course, issued a sweeping decision blocking most of Trump's executive order, claiming the Constitution doesn't grant the president specific powers over elections. Yeah, but we control, the federal government controls the mail, doesn't it? Of course, Trump's DOJ appealed the decision, and the ruling from the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals has just come in, and it is an absolute bombshell. The D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals issued a 2-page order, in effect striking down that lower court's injunction, ruling that the Postal Service is likely to ultimately win on appeal. Translation, the courts just told every blue state stonewalling this process that their legal argument doesn't hold water, and the rule can move forward right now while the underlying case continues. Bill Saley, the first assistant U.S. attorney for the Central District of California, called the ruling exactly what it is. Quote, "This is a huge win for election integrity with significant implications for states like California that refuse to submit their voter rolls to verify compliance with federal election laws." Now, think about what this actually means on the ground. States like California, where nearly every single voter automatically receives a ballot by mail, even those who don't live in California anymore, as we have eyewitness testimony for. They're staring down a system that's about to demand actual verification before those ballots can even be sent out, before they ever hit a mailbox. No more mass printing ballots for every name sitting on a bloated voter roll, whether that person still lives in the state or not, whether that person is a citizen or not, whether that person's even alive. This is the exact scenario Democrats have fought tooth and nail to avoid, that kind of accountability, because for years they built Entire campaign infrastructures, ballot harvesting operations, NGO networks, community turnout machines around the assumption that millions of ballots would simply flood out into the world with minimal oversight. And the fact that the left is so outraged over the call for oversight is itself inherently suspicious, is it not? Again, how could anyone possibly overtly oppose election security measures? How? Well, I think it's rather obvious, is it not? People with nothing to hide don't get this defensive. Take Stacey Abrams as a case in point, who, keep in mind, is herself an election denier. She, to this day, insists that the 2018 gubernatorial election in Georgia was stolen from her. She actually had the completely self-unaware audacity to post this after Trump's speech Thursday night. Donald Trump just used a primetime address to relitigate an election he lost 6 years ago and to demand new laws making it harder to vote. Americans see through the lies. He tried this in Georgia first. A call to find 11,000 votes, a raid on Fulton County, and now a war on the ballot itself. That's not democracy. That's cowardice. America, we've beaten it before. Yeah, well, Stacey Abrams certainly knows what getting beaten means. She's never won an election in her life. All the while, she herself claims those elections were rigged and fraudulent. Unfortunately for Stacey and her fellow panicked Democrats, it's all sound and fury signifying nothing for the vast majority of the country. A recent Reuters poll found that 53% of voters expressed concern about the integrity of mail-in or absentee ballots. That includes 83% of Republicans versus, of course, just 33% of Democrats. And a recent Yahoo YouGov poll found that just 23% of Americans were confident the 2026 midterm vote will, quote, not be rigged. Just 23% were confident over that. The Democrats have clearly lost the argument here. Americans want to feel confident that our elections are secured. And as you saw with that Reuters poll, very few issues galvanize Republicans like election integrity. And with his speech last Thursday night, I think Trump is playing this brilliantly. You know, in many respects, the irony here is that the Democrats only have themselves to blame for so many calling into question the security of our voting. Think about it. Who were the ones insisting for years on Russian interference in our 2016 election? Who was that? And then think about it. They went from screaming for years about our compromised election to then turning around and taking a complete about face, claiming that our elections were the most pristine, secure in the history of humanity a mere 4 years later, and that after taking measures that made our elections demonstrably less secure. Only a Democrat can think that way. But that said, President Trump is absolutely crushing it with this issue, and this executive order regulating mail-in ballots is just the tip of the iceberg. But first, gang, one of the most frequent questions I get asked by our audience is this. Maybe you wanted to ask this. Dr. Steve, is now really the right time to buy gold? Right? It's a fair question. Gold has had a tremendous run. Silver has been moving higher and higher. So naturally, people wonder, so did I miss it? Is it too late? But I actually think that's the wrong way of looking at it. The real question isn't whether gold has already gone up. Obviously, it has. The real question is whether the reasons for owning it have changed. I mean, think about where we are today. Central banks continue buying gold at record levels all over the world. Global debt continues to explode. Geopolitical tensions aren't going away. These are the very trends that we've been talking about on this channel for years. And if those trends haven't changed, then why would the case for owning physical gold and silver? So that's why more and more people are taking a closer look, not because they're chasing price, but because they're responding to what's happening in the world. Some are purchasing physical gold and silver directly. Others are moving a portion of an IRA or 401k into a gold IRA as part of their long-term wealth protection strategy. That's one reason why I trust Augusta Precious Metals. What I appreciate is that they don't try to convince you to buy anything. They start by helping you understand your options. They'll explain how purchasing physical gold or silver works, show you how a gold IRA works if you're using retirement funds, answer your questions, and then let you decide whether it's right for your situation. So if you'd like to learn more, go to turleybuysgold.com or text Turley to 35052. That's 35052, and request Augusta's free guide. Because in my view, the question isn't whether gold has already moved, it's whether the reasons for owning it have changed. And from where I sit, they haven't. Click on that link below right now. This ruling doesn't exist in a vacuum, gang. This is one more piece of a much bigger puzzle Trump has been quietly assembling for months. On July 9th, Trump fired the 2 remaining Democrat commissioners on the Election Assistance Commission, leaving that agency with 0 sitting commissioners and giving Trump total control over who gets appointed next and what standards they'll enforce. His Department of Justice has sent letters to election officials in all 50 states and D.C. warning of possible criminal prosecution if officials knowingly let non-citizens stay registered, and several blue states that refuse to comply are now being hauled into court over it. He signed 2 sweeping elections executive orders, one directing states to purge non-citizens from their rolls and limit mail-in ballots, and another ordering DHS and the Social Security Administration to build a federally verified master state citizenship list that gets sent to every state at least 60 days before an election, while directing the United States Postal Service to create traceable, barcoded official election mail envelopes sent only to verified absentee voters. That's the exact mechanism this court ruling just gave a green light to move forward on. He's also relaunched the Election Integrity Army, the massive Republican monitoring force from 2024, now bigger and stronger for 2026. And he's tasked Vice President J.D. Vance's fraud task force with rooting out fraud across federal programs, elections included. And on top of all of that, federal funding tied to Homeland Security and FEMA grants is now increasingly linked to states' cooperation, compliance, and election integrity, a pressure point that does not require a single vote in Congress. So this latest court ruling is the piece that turns all of that theory into practice. Without the United States Postal Service actually being allowed to demand those voter lists and barcodes, none of the citizenship verification, none of the fraud crackdowns, none of the executive orders mean much in a mail-in ballot world. Now the Postal Service has the green light, again, at least for now, to require exactly the kind of verification Trump has been building the infrastructure for all year. Democrats are heading into a midterm with a number of senators retiring in states Republicans can win, a generic ballot spread that keeps shrinking, a Voting Rights Act that has officially been gutted by the Supreme Court, redistricting losses stacking up, and USAID's shuttered NGO ballot harvesting pipeline already dismantled. And now on top of it all, the exact mail-in ballot machinery they depended on for years is facing real verification for the very first time in decades. Now, again, to be crystal clear, the fight isn't over. The D.C. Circuit's order is a stay, not a final ruling. The underlying lawsuit keeps moving through the courts, and Democrats will absolutely keep fighting it every step of the way. They have to. But for the very first time in this entire saga, the legal momentum has flipped decisively in Trump's favor. And blue states that have stonewalled transparency for months may not have a choice left but to finally hand over the roles. We're finally going to see just how deep this actually goes, and I, for one, can't wait to see the panic on the face of Democrats who now realize their days of election shenanigans are finally coming to an end. Friends, listen. We are not watching the decline of Christian civilization. We are watching its reawakening. I've written a free ebook, The Reawakening of Christian Civilization, and a free 3-part video series to go with it. The whole package is yours at no cost. Scan the QR code on your screen right now or hit the link in the description. Go grab it. It's all waiting for you.